All right, and we're back here again on Heart Has No Limits podcast. And to say we have a special guest, I don't think would be hitting the mark. We've got an actual one of one today. Not many times you get on a podcast, somebody doing something for the first time, and that's what we have here today with Callie Brownson. So before I even let her jump in here, I'm going to say a quick overview of her entire life, what she's faced, what achievements she's had. And like I was telling her before, that I usually let them do it, but I think she'd be too humble in this moment. And I want to make sure that the audience hears everything that she's accomplished. So today's guest isn't just breaking barriers. She's building the blueprint for what's possible. Callie Brownson is one of the most respected women in football and a former All-American, two-time national champ with the DC Divas, and a gold medalist with Team USA. She made history as the first full-time female coach in Division I football at Dartmouth, and then did it again in the NFL, becoming the first women's coach a position group in a regular season game with the Cleveland Browns. I actually remember hearing about that when it happened. And then over the next 5 years with Cleveland, she helped lead players like Amari Cooper and Jared Jeudy, some pretty big names there, to Pro Bowl seasons, coached the Senior Bowl, and then left her mark on and off the field. Now in 2025, Callie is stepping into the national leadership role as a senior director of high performance and the national team operations of USA Football, overseeing the future of flag and tackle football as the sport heads towards the Olympics debut in 2028. She's leading the strategy, training, and execution for Team USA men's and women's national teams and is shaping the next era of football on the global stage. But what makes her story powerful isn't just the milestones. It's the mindset, the grit, the vision, and the refusal to fold when the odds said to quit. So today we're going to dive deep into how she did it, what made her different, and the mental tools she used to turn no chance into next level. So without further ado, Callie, I hope that touched on all the points, and can't thank you enough for jumping on the podcast with us.
No, thanks for having me, Cole. You're right. I would have been too humble to say all of that for sure.
It's a lot. And I actually had to cut out a lot too, because I was reading. I'm like, this is kind of a long intro. So yeah, it's a good problem to have. But look, where I want to start, obviously, is especially with your story. Like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of firsts. And I want people to hear really what you were dealing with up here. Because as some of the questions will point out, there's really no blueprint for you. You had to pave the way. So let's take it back. When did you first realize football was more than just a game to you, and what made you chase it even though there wasn't a clear path for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I always loved football. I grew up, my dad was a single father, so he kind of raised my brother and I by himself. And he went to University of Miami, so we grew up watching Miami Hurricane football. And this was back in like the Larry Coker era in the 90s.
Oh, when they were killing it. Yeah.
So it was fun on Saturdays to watch him play. And I just fell in love with the game. And a lot of it was a bonding opportunity with my dad. He was a girl dad in that way and loved spending time with me. And we bonded over sports. And that was huge for me. So I always loved it. And then when I was 9, he actually let me play, much to his dismay. And
there was a lot of fighting there. Was he like, no, you shouldn't do this, and you just had to win him over?
It was, yeah. I had to win him over. I had to convince him that it was something that I wanted to do. But he let me do it, and I loved it. I loved playing. And this is back when you're like so small, your helmet weighs more than you.
Oh yeah,
like,
bobblehead.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't look pretty at all. Never watch the tape. You're just trying to get out of the situation. But no, it was awesome. And so my love kind of continued. I tried to play in high school, and I was told no, that they wouldn't let females play in high school. So that was kind of devastating for me. And that was really kind of my first like no. And my dad coached me through the whole thing. You know, he said, look, this sucks. It's disappointing. But it's not the end. If these things are meant to be a part of your life, they will be. You know, just find things that you're passionate about, stay to it. You know, your relationship with football doesn't have to be over. And it wasn't. So when I graduated high school, I went to college kind of near my hometown. I went to George Mason University in Virginia. And somebody approached me. I was 19 and said, do you want to try out for this women's professional tackle team? And I said, that exists. And sure enough, I jumped into it and played 8 seasons there in DC and enjoyed every moment of it. And that's really when it clicked to me. How do I make this a part of the rest of my life? I know at some point I'm going to have to hang the cleats up. I know at some point, you know, this is going to end for me, but how do I make this the rest of my life, basically? And I was coaching high school softball at the time in my early 20s. So it was kind of like, how do I merge these two things together? So to your point, I didn't really there was no representation to be able to say I can make a career out of this and I can do this. It really wasn't until I got approached by a close friend of mine who I had worked with in my time playing, Sam Rappaport, who was with the NFL, and they launched the first ever women's careers in football forum. And it was a very small group for the first time, but she invited me because I was coaching high school football and was very clear with her that I had an interest on wanting to get in. And so I went and I met a lot of amazing people. It was head coaches and GMs and some really, really amazing people, and ended up getting an internship with the Jets in the scouting department, not coaching, but in scouting. And for me, it was a foot in. Yeah. I want to get in the door, and met some amazing people that I'm still really close with to this day that were in the Jets building. And they did, you know, they treated me really well. I learned so much. And the best part of the story is when I'm done with that internship, I went on a couple interviews with some other NFL teams and didn't get the job. So I had this like internal moment of maybe this isn't going to work out. Maybe I'm still at the wrong time. Maybe 5 years from now, I'll try again and things will change a little bit more. But I just kept getting no. And I got a call to go work a camp down in Thibodaux, Louisiana. It was the Manning Passing Academy. And they were doing a women and girls clinic, and I got asked, and I was like, you know what, guys, like, I'm just trying to focus on what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. This football thing, it's like not sitting with me right. I don't know. And they were like, just go. You love to be on the field. You love to coach. You love to do these things. Just go. And so sure enough, I went, and the guy who was running the camp was Buddy Stevens, who was the head coach at Dartmouth. And I made an impression on him. And before I left Thibodaux, he offered me an internship. And so I went up and joined the Dartmouth crew when they reported for camp. And there's a video out there somewhere of it, but the day before I was supposed to leave, he offered me a full-time position, and then that's kind of when we made history there. And it was a really unbelievable moment, and kind of bringing everything full circle. And I went to Dartmouth, and then the rest just happened so fast. You know, Dartmouth turned into the Buffalo Bills, and then it turned into Cleveland. And I mean, it was like in a blink, everything just happened so fast. But I owe a lot of it to Coach Stevens. You know, he was a coach in the Ivy League, which always tends to be a little bit behind the curve when it comes to being progressive and stuff like that sometimes. But he saw something in me and took a chance and invested in me and gave me a life-changing opportunity, which eventually then propelled me into the rest of my career. Right.
Damn. So, I mean, I had so many questions just from that one statement. It sounds like you were close in your mind almost, especially the way you were describing it, that you were almost like, okay, I'm going to just go take my normal role doing whatever normal people are doing. Like it seemed like you had got to that point where you're like, I tried this. And even when you popped up, you're like, oh, maybe it's 5 years. At that point, you're starting to make like, I don't want to say excuses, but like accepting it. Hey, this just isn't the time. How close do you think you were if you didn't meet him down in Thibodaux? How close were you to saying, hey, look, is it right after you leave there? Did you have a couple, I don't know if you had a contract or something with somebody else that was about to end? How far away were you from just stepping away and, you know, going to just live the everyday life?
I mean, I was pretty close. I mean, I remember, you know, calling some friends and talking to my dad. You know, lucky that I've always had a really close relationship with my dad. And I remember I was laying on the couch at his house one time talking to him about it and just saying, like, I love this thing so much, and I know I want to make my life this, but it's just like the universe is kind of telling me no.
Right,
you know?
right.
And I was riding this line, and I was young back then, and I'm so glad that as I came through and learned from people like Buddy Stevens and Sean McDermott in Buffalo, like my mentality with that changed. But I was riding this line of like, what's the definition between like ambition and going after your goals and just being crazy and delusional?
It's crazy to bring that up. It's not a question like that.
Yeah. And I was really having that internal conflict of, am I delusional, or like, do I really need to like keep my head down and go do this and figure it out?
Right. Is this just a hard time? Can I push through it? Or is this just,
And fortunately, the people around me, this goes back to having great support systems and everything that you do. We can't do everything by ourselves. They help me clear through that and say, this opportunity just came up. Yeah, it's not a job in the NFL. It's going down and coaching this camp, but like, it's what you love to do. And at the bare minimum, you go down and you enjoy yourself coaching on the field and doing the things you love. At the bare minimum, what's wrong with that? And it kind of reminded me that, it's not always pretty. Like it's not always, if that was the case, then everybody would be successful. But like the road's not always paved. And so I had to keep going. And if I hadn't gone down to that camp and met Coach Stevens, then the next ripple effect of life doesn't happen for me. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I eventually had that perseverance in me to say, you know what, I need to keep at this, or at least keep giving it a shot. And then the people around me. I mean, it's so important to have a support system that knows what you love. And in those moments where we don't feel like ourselves, can remind us of what we love and who we are. Like, I think that's a big part of my story is having those people around me.
Yeah. So with what you're explaining, it was literally one day that changed everything. You can break it down, and this is obviously for the audience to hear. She's saying she was at the end of her road of what she was willing to give almost, and maybe reality and her sense was hitting her, and that if you don't go down to this camp and meet this person, we're probably not talking, and the rest of the other crazy things that I read about earlier aren't happening. I think everybody needs to understand that it could be, it's probably the one thing you don't want to do that's going to make that big choice. And this is another, as you bring up your dad, and I bring him up a ton on my end, my dad, and that's something I'll jump back into. But he always said, if there's one thing, if there's something you don't want to go do, just go do it right away. Don't think about it. You can't dwell on it. Then you're going to start making excuses on why and start weighing options. I don't know. No, it's better. Mm-hmm. Go do it. And as you're at the end of it, why not, if you've got a chance already lined up, why not just go take it? Why not just go see what's up? What's the worst that happens? You don't enjoy it and you have a bad time? Okay, but at least you tried. At least you can close that book in your head. Because that what if, I think it would have happened maybe a year or two after you, because I think obviously the world was ready with people like you, pushing, getting there. I could be interviewing somebody else, like it's crazy. Yeah. Yes. It's a chain reaction. Boom. It just keeps going.
And I think that's important. And the message that you say is like, we are our own worst enemies sometimes. We love to talk ourselves out of things. Like, I don't want to get up and work out today, knowing that how we feel on the back end is always our favorite feeling. Like, I don't want to do this. And it's crazy when you put it in perspective how much you're holding yourself back by talking yourself out of things and allowing this inner dialogue that has self-doubt involved in it. And I mean, that's what I was self-doubting myself. I'm not ready for this. I'm not good enough for this. I went on these interviews. I didn't get these jobs. I'm not ready, all these things. I mean, there was a lot of that happening. And then when I snapped out of it and said, I have to walk into this with the mentality of I'm not good enough for this, or this isn't for me. It's like, there's nobody better than me. Like, exactly. That's the way you got to think. There's nobody better than what I can bring to the table.
At what point was that when you hit that mentality? Because I wasn't at first doing anything, but I've had the same kind of mindset where I was like, yes, yes, yes. And then you hit that brick wall or multiple brick walls and it's like, nah. And then you snap yourself back in. Do you know what that when that moment was? And was it something that you had picked up? Like, hey, this is the mentality. I know we bring up the Mamba mentality, like Kobe. Was there something you had picked up, or was it just a decision on your own? Because you had seen the work that you'd put in. I know you believed in yourself for sure, because you wouldn't have been there. Was it just like, nah, like, I'm going to be that different person. I'm going to change the game. Like, I can see it now. It's not going to be easy. I wasn't expecting it to be easy, but I can be that person.
Yeah, I remember it actually pretty distinctly. I was at Dartmouth and I was kind of swimming because when I took the full-time job, we went right into week one. So I'm trying to learn the offense. I'm trying to learn how to do all these things. I didn't have somebody who taught me how to draw the plays on the program. I had to teach myself. Yeah. I didn't have anybody who really taught me how to sift through film and understand even the program that they were using. I didn't have access to those things ahead of time. This was learn on the fly. And so I dealt with a little bit of imposter syndrome, right? So it's like you're working really hard. I mean, the coaching life is crazy. It's 16 to 18-hour days in season. It's nuts. I was working really hard, and then it would come time for like us to be in an offensive staff meeting, and they'd be like, Callie, what'd you find on the tendency report for this? And I'll never forget it. Buddy Tevens, who again was the head coach, sat in on one of those meetings, and I got up and I was like, I worked really hard on this, like should be taking a ton of pride in what I'm handing off. I'd found some really interesting things. I think we were playing Georgetown, and I'd found some really interesting things that were going to be helpful for us in game planning. And I'm kind of like up there and I'm like, well, so on first and second downs, da 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 da. And Buddy called me into his office afterwards, and he said, how long did it take you to make that report? And I was like, I was here all night last night. And he goes, well, then why not project yourself with pride in what you have done? Like, and he looked me dead in my eyes, and I'll never forget the conversation. And I don't know how much you know about Buddy, but he tragically passed away a couple of years ago. So, but I'll never forget this when he looked at me, he said, you earned your way here. You earned your seat at the table. So act like it. And boom, that was all that needed to be said to me, because then like the Callie that had gotten myself to that point kicked in and was like, oh, done deal. And I walked around and had that pride now. I earned a spot on this coaching staff. He took a big risk because he knew I could add value. So like I need to own that and reflect that through what I'm doing. And that's the other part, is coaching is also like, we've all played for coaches where you're like, are you nervous? Like, should I be nervous? Because you seem nervous. Like, if good coaching is reflecting confidence and confidence in what you're teaching and confidence in the moment. So I also had to take a look at that. Like, how am I projecting myself to the players? Do they have confidence in me? Like, am I? Right. So it was like a total mentality switch for me, because I had fallen into this trap of like, there are no women coaching in Division I college football. There's no examples in the NFL. I fell in the trap of like, do we even belong here? And I dampened the part of me that actually made me unique and valuable in that situation. And I had fallen into the societal trap of like, you don't belong here, so you should shrink yourself. And Buddy snapped me out of it really quickly.
So you were obviously on this high going through, and it's so understanding with somebody obviously that's given you a chance, that, you know, you're going in there wanting to do great, but like you were saying, you're not even sure if you are great at it. Like, I think you knew you were great at it because they wouldn't have stuck you in the position. But in your mind, obviously, you're questioning a question, and we're all looking almost for that validation. Yeah. And sometimes it takes a ton of validation from multiple people. Sometimes it takes one from your higher up. I think you snapping out of it that fast, just from, you know, these 18 minutes that we've been talking and that I met you, it wasn't almost like, you know what, I can do it now, because I think you knew it in your head, more of, hey, I have this opportunity nobody's had, and I'm going to not be confident in it because I'm not sure when I'm the one here. I'm not going to let him down. And I think when you turned it on to just, hey, I'm not going to let the guy that gave me a chance as well, because I bring up when I had a hard time with my dad, I was sulking, you know, feeling bad. Oh, I was at the height at LSU and then at this low and low A struggling. And it took one moment like that. His voice cracked when I was crying to him, and I backed up. Mm-hmm. And I said, he got me here. He helped me, and I'm going to act like this because I'm throwing a pity party. Now, that's the big thing, is everybody, we're all human. We're all going to throw it. It's not about the pity party itself. It's how long do you stay in the pity party?
Yes.
Are you going to stay there for a day? Are you going to stay there for a week? Is it going to be a month? Or do we blink and it's 2 years? And now you're doing the what if? Yeah. Like, I think that speaks a lot about you. And I think that's obviously why you are where you are today. So that was sick to hear. Staying on, I wrote down when you were talking on leaning on people. And I want to jump before I talk to, you know, obviously you didn't have really somebody in the coaching world that had gone through what you had done. But I want to talk about your dad. You said he was a single dad, and he raised you. And the way I figured out when I grew up in life, I always thought my parents were put on this earth just to, you know, be my parents. They were born when I was born, type thing. Then you realize they're just us trying to figure it out. Yep. And as I've grown up, I've looked back and I'm just like, how did they do this? Like, And they tell me a lot of times, we don't know, dude. We just figured it out on the fly. How is it with the relationship with your dad molded you into the person you are? Because I would have to imagine, if I'm trying to take the place of your dad's side, that had to be terrifying. Being a single dad with a daughter that wants to play the most man sport of them all and flying around collision. I mean, that makes me want to just speak to him on just how he did it. Can you explain that on, as you've grown up, and how he's looked at it, really for the audience? Maybe if there's some parents out there that are dealing with their kid trying to go after something like this, on like what you've realized he did to you that worked for you.
Yeah. Well, I call him a superhero because he is. I mean, being a single parent, it was more than that too. He early on in my brother and I's life, when it became just him, he was working a lot. He ran his own. He ran a big company, and he was missing a lot of time with us. So he actually sold the company, and started his from our basement so that he could be around and present. So, I mean, the basement of our house was an office all the way through like middle school to high school. And he was the hardest worker I'd ever seen. And then on top of that, though, it's like I had seen a lot of people who were hard workers, people that my dad worked with when I was young, and they were just like always very angry, stressed out, resentful people. My dad is like, had the kindest heart, and the world was not fair to him. He gets dished this card. Nobody plans on getting divorced, and then you divorce, and now you're raising the kids and by yourself, full custody. And then, the rest of the world keeps happening. And so he was just always kind through those things. And it always resonated with me. Like, this man loves us more than anything, when really he could turn around and just be angry at the world for the cards that he was dealt. But he never was. He was just always very grateful. And then just the hardest worker ever. So much of, I always joke that he was my first coach. He didn't know anything about, I played, baseball when I was a kid too. And the football stuff, hockey. I played a little bit of everything. He didn't know a ton about it to ever actually coach, but he was my life coach. And just the things that I would witness, but also the things that he would teach me. And, he taught me a lot. He taught me about setting goals. He taught me about adversity. He taught me about taking care of people. Anybody who knows my dad outside of me, I'm always obviously going to be his number one fan, but, anybody who's met him will sit there and say like he's the most generous, giving person. And he makes everybody feel like family when you're around him. And he really hammered that home for us growing up. Like, people are such an important part of this journey of life, and how you treat them is a reflection of you. And it's also like, and it took me a while to really grasp what he was trying to teach me with this, probably until a few years ago, but like, those people are what pull us out of these hard times, And so how you treat them is how they're going to meet you when you need them. And it's so true. I mean, when we go through stuff, we lean on our people, and these are the people that know us and know, when we don't feel like ourselves. So he was very, very big on being intentional about how you treat people, and the cliche saying, but the truth, like, how do you treat the janitor? My dad would be best friends with the janitor by the time he walked out of the building. That was just the kind of guy he is. So, I'm lucky. I'm lucky because I think the DNA of my purpose and my mentality was built from an ambitious, hardworking, generous, and caring person. Because another piece of trying to be successful in the sports world is the relationships you build. And I've met plenty of people who that's not a priority for them, and it serves them in a bad way. And that's why I say, like, I still keep in touch and I'm friends with the people I worked with at the Jets. I mean, that was years ago, and I was an intern. But those people still matter to me because they invested in me and they taught me things that helped me in my career. And I don't ever want them to think that I'll ever forget that, because they're a part of it and that means something to me. So I'm grateful for that, because it helped me in my career, because my slope was different than everybody else being a woman. I mean, it was like a incline. So you needed everything that you could get. And me being intentional about those relationships, because that's how I was taught, definitely helped kind of bring that incline down a little bit for me.
Yeah, that is incredible. What's your dad's name?
Bruce.
Bruce. Shout out Bruce. Yeah. Did a great job, Bruce. That's absolutely incredible. Let's talk a little bit on getting into the Cleveland Browns. Now, take me how that happened. Was it fast? And then I mean, that, like I said, that's a total different ball game there, especially with you being one of the first women in the locker room. Now, I know, in sports, they've got women in the locker room just being the trainers and stuff. So I don't think it's as big of a jump as some people might think. But it's definitely something you don't know how to fully navigate when they're not looking at, oh, that's a trainer, that's coach now. Yep. Yeah, take me how you go from Dartmouth into the NFL, and then what that's like dealing with those, the big shots now.
Yeah. No, I mean, so yeah, it happened really quickly. I was actually doing a full season internship with the Buffalo Bills. I'd gone from Dartmouth over to the Buffalo Bills, and I was there for a year. And it was a great season. That was the 2019 season. We went to the playoffs. Josh Allen's breakout year. It was amazing to be a part of. I was learning from some of the best minds. Sean McDermott, Leslie Frazier, Brian Dable, who's now the head coach for the Giants, is a huge mentor of mine. And then, the season ends for us, and it's kind of that weird time in the NFL season where people are getting fired, and then all these new staffs are getting created, and it's just like total shuffle. And it's funny in the NFL because, like, when that happens, you could be like on a team and employed with somebody, but everybody's like, hey, put my name here, and so and so.
Right.
So really, I had never met Kevin Stefanski before. I'd heard of him. We had mutual, colleagues that were on the staff that I was with. And one of my colleagues was like, hey, Kevin Stefanski reached out to me about you. Would you be willing to talk to him? And I said, sure. So we had a little week break, and I was in Boston, and I got this call from this Minnesota number, and I was like, what is this? And I answered it, and it was Kevin Stefanski.
Oh, my heart would have dropped.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, usually you have time to prep for these things. I'm
right.
Cold call, like, I was so nervous, and I'm on the phone. I'm like, hey, coach, it's nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And we talked for like 45 minutes just getting to know each other. He didn't ask me a thing about football. He just wanted to know my story and why I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And he said, listen, I really like you. I like to think I'm a good read of people. I want to bring you to Cleveland for a formal interview. And sure enough, I did. And I was in one of those situations where, like, it's tricky because I had a job in Buffalo. I was in contract negotiations. I wasn't sure what the next year was going to look like for me in Buffalo. But it's also like the NFL's kind of this weird thing where it's like, wait, you're going to go interview at another team? So I remember telling Kevin sitting across the table and being like, hey, I don't know if I have a job when I go back to Buffalo. So I hope I did well. I don't know how you feel, but I don't know that I have a job when I get back to Buffalo because I came here. And he just kind of laughed, and he said, that's great because I was going to offer you the job anyways. And so offered me the job. I said yes, and took the 3-hour drive from Buffalo to Cleveland and moved to Cleveland, and we got started. And I was really operating as his chief of staff at that time, as well as being able to coach. And then COVID hits in 2020, and the whole world just kind of freezes, especially the NFL world. So that first year in the NFL in that capacity was a whirlwind, a total whirlwind.
Jeez, I can imagine. Did you feel anything from the players? Honestly, like that's like, was there anybody acting ill or being like, "Hey, you shouldn't be here" type thing? I mean, I'd have to imagine no, just from being around some of the pro guys with us. But like, if so, like that's kind of rattle you, or like, did you hear any of that?
No, so I never dealt with that. I think it was always. Everybody was always really good to me. And as I like accomplished things over my time in Cleveland, like there was no better people who were like happy for me than the players. I mean, that when I had to step in during COVID and be a position coach in a regular season game, David Njoku was so pumped for me. Like he was like, this is amazing. I'm so happy. So I had a really good experience with that. I think just like anybody maybe instinctually at first or like, does she know her stuff? And that's probably the extent of it. But you're in control of that. And like I've always said, and this being around, pro athletes, like if you can be somebody who can take them one step further towards being successful, they really don't care who you are. They appreciate you.
Help me.
So, yeah, if you can help them, then they're all ears. So I just always tried to, portray that, learn their learning styles and so forth. Like when you get to training camp and everything's moving 300 miles an hour, how can I help you digest this better? Like that's all that it really ever meant for them. So I was always that for them. How can I make this easier so that on Sundays you can go out and play fast and do your thing, and they respect you for that. And that goes for any coach, even the men, because there's some that they don't feel like are right. their cup like that and they don't get their respect, and then others that are and they have that respect. So I think it's for anybody that they interact with. If you're there to help them, they're all ears.
Yeah. What do you think separated you from the other women that maybe had the same dream but obviously didn't get to, like, what is the X factor? Because, and I know, again, this is on the Hubble side. I know you might not fully end up saying it, but like, you are different. There is something different because there were women trying to do exactly what you were doing. If it was 5 years before, thinking the same thought that you had, but then ended up coming through. Have you noticed that in yourself? Hey, I've noticed this is a little bit different inside of me.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what would be necessarily different from me to anybody else, but I do know what helped me be successful, what helped me continue to accomplish things in my career was I had this, it was almost like a contract with myself where it was like, if your life doesn't become what you envision for yourself, you have nobody to blame but yourself. And I never wanted to live with that feeling of I look at what I missed out on because I just like didn't have the courage or took something too personally and it drove me in a different direction. Like, I just felt so responsible to myself and my life and the outcome of it. And then as my career went on and I started to see the impact of women in the NFL, women in football in general, I'll never forget. It was 2020. It was COVID. We played they were the Washington football team. Now they've changed their name 6 times. But they were WFT then. And Jen King, who was also a female coaching in the NFL, we were both coaching against each other, and Sarah Thomas was an official. So it was like this big monumental moment for women in the NFL. And we took this picture, and afterwards, I never looked at that stuff until we got past the game. I was always very locked in, but somebody had posted something saying like they were watching the broadcast where they talked about it, and her daughter was like, "Oh my gosh, I can be a football coach." And like something about that like stuck with me where I was like, me just living out my dream is changing other people's mindsets on what they're capable of. Like, yes, that's a heavy burden in a way, but also like, I don't want to let somebody down. I want to show them how far you can take this thing.
Yeah.
And I want them to come and do it and just, but I just felt this sense of responsibility, I think, to one, accomplish my goals, but two, like change the world a little bit and change the way. And it was like towards the younger population, but it was also like, I got to this point where I was almost like angry a lot because I just wanted to prove everybody wrong who had something bad to say. I was like, I'm going to show you that you have no idea what you're talking about. And it really motivated me almost from a place of anger for a little while.
How did you change that anger into motivation and not just anger to want to rage and quit? Because I think that's for a bunch of the audience. It's like when you say it to me, I'm like, yeah, I know I did exactly the thing. My high school coach said, no, you can't play at LSU. In my head, what? You don't know, like, that's completely wrong. But the other kids, and like I saw it, that coach had played at LSU. Okay, well, he played there, so why would I waste my time? Like, how did you turn that into just fuel? Or is there a way that you learn, or you're just like, you know what, like, I understand he's got his opinion or she's got her opinion, but she doesn't really fully understand what I'm going or what I'm capable of doing, and I'm going to just add that to a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah, I think it was a mixture of both. It stopped being angry to me because it almost started being like,
you welcome it almost.
Yeah, I'm like,
yeah.
Hey, talk that talk. I love it. Yeah. I love it. I started to almost just like really lean into it and say, I hope you have something negative to say because you're really going to be pissed at my next move, man. And it was like a fuel. It became like this little game for me. And, all those things serve you, it's about where you put them and how you utilize those emotions. And I just stopped being angry about it because I looked back and I was just like, man, you're if you don't get on board to understand this for what it is, then you're going to be the one who looks stupid at the end of it. Right. So
right.
I just kept pushing through it.
Yeah. A lot of what I hear is from you is like, yeah, you were motivated, but motivation only lasts for so long. And at those moments, obviously you were motivated, but what you turned all of those comments in was, I think, to your discipline, that those comments were now not, making you angry. That's your discipline. That I'm going to take these comments. I know what to do with these comments, disciplined enough to put them right here. So when I need a little bit extra that day, I can go because I used to write down stuff in my notes. This person said this. This person said that, because we all lose motivation. You can't ride on the high of motivation all the time. You're going to crash. Yep. So when you're not waking up ready to roll, you've got to look back at what are these little discipline things that I've set for myself. And honestly, that leads me into my next question. With Heart Has a Limit, we talk a ton about mental reps. What were your personal mental reps, routines, affirmations, strategies that can kind of help you lock in during especially those pressure situations? I'm sure there's something you could probably remember that was in your routine right before your first day coaching with the Browns being on field. There's something you probably reverted to that maybe you started all the way at Dartmouth. I want to kind of give the viewers how important that routine or whatever it is, that little niche that you find, because we're creatures of habit and we need that comforting thing. I mean, just for example for this, I've got like 15 questions I wrote down. As soon as you started going on it, I've only touched 2 more of it because I was prepared, but it just ends up happening. So yeah, go on with that, please.
I would say one of the things that was always core to my routine, and if I ever started to sway, I always said you have this emotional pathway when you work in high stress environments, right? And if you can stay as center in your lane on the emotional pathway, then you don't have to worry about all these other volatile things that can happen. Mm-hmm. So if I ever found myself kind of swaying off of it, this sounds, a little cliche and simple, but it was just a reminder of my why. And I would get to the point where I would do it as an exercise in the car on the way to work every day. All right. 1, why am I doing this? Why is this important to me? And then 2, why do I want to continue? Why is it important for me to continue? And some days you wake up and that list is long. Some days you wake up and it's for the paycheck, honestly, just get me through the day. I don't know. Right. And I found that was a great way for me to check in with myself and know where I was kind of on my emotional pathway. But that's something that's always been helpful for me because it is hard. It is a really hard job. And it's one of those jobs too, where even when you're right, you're wrong sometimes. And it's based off of, the whole culture of a building is based off of whether you win or lose. So, I helped out with the receivers. Our receivers could have a phenomenal game, but we lost by a field goal. And the feeling in the building is it's just thick. The air is thick. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to self-regulate yourself in an environment that you don't have any control over what the feeling is. You got to find a way to be I don't want to fall into this and also be in a negative headspace because the vibe around us is negative. So I would always just kind of take myself back and be all right, why is this important to me? Why am I going to show up with the way that I'm going to show up? How am I going to show up the way I'm going to show up this week? And then stay in my emotional pathway and not let the rest of this in the peripheral control what I can do. And it's a hard thing to do, especially when you get to week 13 and 14 because you're tired and you're beat up and you're trying to keep that going. But the why, if you have a solid why in anything that you do and you remind yourself of that, you can push through anything. Yeah. Because it's the second you have that conversation with yourself, again, you're yep, got it. Check.
Yeah. The why word has been everything to me too. Because when I was growing up, I always said to myself, obviously I knew what I wanted to do, and that was to play ball at LSU. And I just wanted to look at every reason on why didn't I make it? What would be a reason why I didn't? And if it was I skipped workouts like we talked about because I ended up going out to a party or whatever, well, that's why. Well, I didn't prepare my body for a doubleheader that's going to be played in 95-degree heat, and I cramped up. Well, that's why. And if these start accumulating, there's nobody to look at other than myself. And the biggest thing is I can only control, like you were talking about in the room, a lot of things you can't control. I can only control myself, the way I perform, the way I prepare. And we're all at fault with it when stuff starts going chaotic and everybody had a great game. The game plan worked, but for some reason we lost just because sports are sports. Yep. You've got to have something you go back to where you can remind yourself that I am who I am. This is okay. This is uncontrollable. I did my job, and I got to trust. And like you said, cliches, trust the process that sometimes you can do everything in the world and it's just not going to work out. And that is totally okay. But I think that's where people get so afraid of, like, I might look like an idiot. Well, I'm scared to look like an idiot that wasn't even willing to show up. You want to make fun of me for trying something that you wouldn't even stand up on the stage to do? That I think that speaks a lot about people. And I think as you grow up, I think that's why you talk to those people at the Jets still. There's all of these people that as you grow up and you start looking, like, that's the mindset that I want. That's the person I need to be around. And that's honestly going to lead me into the next question, the environment. How big, and you can even tie in from when you were younger to now, the environment you're in, even when you were in the NFL, how big is an environment for people to understand? Like, when you were talking, I wrote it down, leaned on multiple people, because one of my questions was, there's no blueprint for you. There is no mentor for you. So how important is that environment that you're in keeping you straight on that path, being around the right people? Because you can have a bad game, go over here, the people that don't care about this, they get you out of it. Next thing you know, you miss the next day of work. Yep. So yeah, if you could touch on that.
It's essential. And I think people get stuck on this sometimes because, I coach with people from all kinds of different backgrounds. Some people who didn't really have any family that they came from, or whatever it was, or had moved so much that they didn't really keep in touch with people. It's not about the quantity, right? It's about the quality of your environment. So it doesn't mean that you need to have a whole army behind you. Even if it's one person who you can call on the ride home and say, yo, this was a bad day, man, and I don't know what I'm doing. And they say, I can tell you what you're doing, right? Because I know you. And I was in the room when you were having these enthusiastic conversations about what you were doing. And I can remind you of those things. Your environment, it's essential, because you made the point, like, you're responsible for your own actions. But, like, if you choose to go to a party instead of do what you need to do the night before a game, or put in those extra couple hours of work or whatever, like, that's your environment pulling you over there too. That's the people that you have around you who don't understand the importance of, like, that's not what I should be doing the night before a game or whatever it is. So your environment's supportive, but it's also a piece of your focus and your drive. And, like, as we get older as people, like, outside of sports, like, we get more and more selective, right? Like, as I get older, I'm like, I don't want the person who's going to call me on Tuesday and say, let's go down and get tacos and margaritas. Like, I got to work tomorrow.
Right.
Well, I'll see you this weekend or whatever it is. But like, very selective. And I had to get really selective because I had a lot of people that were very important to me and close to me. But letting them that extra layer of the onion closer to who I was and what I was doing, I couldn't do. Because it didn't serve me in that relationship and where their lives were. And there was nothing wrong with that. That's where their lives were, and that's okay. But it didn't serve the mission that I was on, and it was potentially detrimental to my environment. So I still loved them. I still cared about them. I still kept in touch with them, but they didn't get that extra level of access to be part of, like, that close environment of my support system, because you have to be selective about, just like we tell athletes, be selective about what you put in your body, what you consume. It's the same thing for your environment. What you spend your time with and what you, like, your environment absorbs into you and your habits and all of those things. If you're not selective and you're not strategic about who those people are, where you are. I had a coach talk about the fact that he was in his mid-30s, and he was like, when I worked for this certain team, everybody told me to go live at this condo complex. And so I went and toured it. And as I looked around, I was like, I'm going to lose my job if I live at this condo complex. There's all these distractions and stuff. So I know myself well enough to know that this is not the right environment for me.
That's a mature decision. It's easy to say, hey, I'm moving in here to have fun, but it's a major separator. And the more I hear you talk, the more I realize that everything you've done for a while now is driven by purpose. And when we're doing all this curriculum and stuff for our nonprofit Heart Has No Limit, which we're knocking on the door, finishing up for the Boys and Girls Club down in Lafayette, we talk a lot about if you can give somebody a purpose, what that can do for them. If they've got something to wake up to and they've got something to work towards that they care about, that they feel like their identity's tied to, That's everything. And I had a 2-week spill where I had no purpose. Like right after pro ball, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I had 2 weeks where the first purpose I figured out is I have to work out. I thought it was like, finally, hey, look, I don't have to work out no more. Nobody's yelling at me, all that. And then I got back into it. And then next thing you know, I found this, which was tied to my entire life with Heart Has a Limit. And it gave me that purpose back. And I can just remember like this cloud feeling like it was pulled away from me, and the clarity of it. So I think that's a big thing for our listeners to do, is try and find that purpose. And, you know, if you've got kids, it's your kids, but find that purpose that keeps you going, especially in that downtime. I've got 2 more questions for it. What's up?
Well, I was going to say, I think that that's awesome to find your own purpose. And I think to like what you're doing and what you guys do with Heart Has No Limit, I think you also giving other people purpose. Like when we're down and we're out and we're not sure of who we are, sometimes inspiring others and giving other people purpose actually fills our tank up. So it's cool and it's rewarding, and that's why it is rewarding. So I think that that's such a big part of it too, is taking care of yourself, having your own purpose, but like how you pour into other people's cups as well. You'll find it's very energizing. It's very motivating. It's very inspiring. And it reminds us who we are.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up, because I almost feel selfish at times doing it. Like, because I'm saying it, trying to help that person. And I know that if this person understands it, I'm going to end up getting this. And it's like, it's almost an addictive feeling, because it's like, wait, we figured out a problem, or I picked this person up together, and now we both are riding this high. I was fine before. They were down here, but why do I feel better now that they're up here with me? It doesn't make sense. Nothing. I didn't receive anything. Right. I think as you've learned growing up, you've had people help you and all this stuff, and especially when you're down in a spot, you remember those people that help you. So you never forgot about that and say, hey, I'm going to be that next person. And that's my entire drive behind all this. I don't know why God let me achieve my goal at LSU, but after I got there, I was like, I want to give this feeling to as many kids as I possibly can. Like, and that was everything I needed.
So true.
Yeah. Great point by you. I want to touch on one thing with USA football that you're doing now, and then just got a little closing question. But you're now helping build the future of football in USA football and the flag movement. What's your role in this mission, and why does it matter to you at a personal level?
Yeah. Well, I'm really fortunate because, I mean, flag football has obviously taken off in the past few years, but now it's in the Olympics, so everybody's talking about it. And part of me feeling the pull to take this job and step away from the NFL was that going back to that purpose piece. Like, what a great opportunity it is to create this sport and the platform in which it will sit on. So my role, the word soup title, is Senior Director of High Performance and National Teams. All that really means is I oversee our entire football process for our national team. So how we select players and coaches, how we evaluate, scout, recruit, and do all of that and fill our talent pool. We've got our junior national teams and our national teams, so 6 teams in total. The adult teams will be the ones in LA in 2028. So really everything you can think of that has to do with the game and our athletes and our coaches, our staff, and our process falls under me. So thinking about it leading up to the Olympics, it's my job to ensure that we elevate ourselves to a level by 2028 where we definitely have the best athletes on our teams. We're competitive, but we're also operating at a professional level. So it's a really awesome challenge. I put it underline under challenge because it's going to be hard. But I'm excited about it, and how cool is it? You know, when we look at sports, we're like, oh yeah, I've heard of that sport. We've all heard of flag football, but it's really like an emerging sport in its infancy. And I saw this as like, I get to be at the ground floor to build this thing, and then everybody's going to see it and cheer for it in 2028. And how great is that feeling going to be that I got to be one of the people weaving the fabric of what this thing's going to look like? It was like an offer I couldn't refuse. So I'm super pumped, and I encourage everybody. Like, we all have that version of flag football in our head, like powder puff or whatever. This stuff is elite, man. It is elite. It is so much fun to watch. It is not what you think of when you think of flag football. It is unbelievable.
Well, you brought off powder puff, so first thing that popped in my mind was I gotta give a shout out to my sister all the way back in high school about 10 years ago. She was a powder puff MVP. So Probably past her career now, but shout out Casey. But the last question, millions of kids are now watching the sport. Girls who once felt left out now see a real opportunity because of people like you. What legacy do you hope to leave in this world of football, especially with the young women coming up?
Yeah, I mean, that football's for anybody. I think one of the beauties of the sport is it doesn't discriminate, right? If you love the game, you should have access to it. And that's really what we're pushing for is, it used to be like you had to strap on the pads to be able to play football, and now you don't, right? Mm-hmm. There's this version of the sport that's accessible. So I love it because this next generation, if you love the game, you have a place for yourself in the game. Mm-hmm. Whether you're a boy, a girl, a man, a woman, whatever it is, you have space, and we're creating it to be, you not only have space, but you have space in this respectable sport, elite sport. So I think that's what's so exciting about it is it's opened the door for football to be for everybody. Mm-hmm. And that's what it belongs. I said it when I was working in it, it shouldn't be selective on who gets to be a football person, right? Like, it's such a beautiful sport that teaches you so much about yourself, teamwork, leadership, life. Like, it's such a parallel to life. All sports are really, but everybody should be able to have access to it because it's such a gift. It's such a gift to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, Callie, I'm excited to see what you're going to do in just the near future, and I can't even see what's going to be in the next decade of what you're going to accomplish. I can't thank you enough for jumping on here with Heart Has No Limit and giving our viewers a one-of-one type experience that you've had. And I'm definitely hoping to have you on in the near future as well. So thank you.
Absolutely, Cole. Thanks for having me. This was awesome.